guys, Tyler here, and this is the Garage Warrior Podcast, and I am super excited today to have on the show intermittent fasting expert Brad Pilon. How's it going, Brad?
It's going well. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent, man. I really appreciate you taking the time today to get on the call and talk about intermittent fasting. And the reason why is there is so much buzz about this these days. I've been calling it kind of the next nutrition fad, the next paleo fad, if you will, right? And
totally.
I'd love to just kind of dig into it.
I was just saying, it definitely in this last year has reached that like fad status now in the nutrition world.
It's crazy. You know what's funny though? I picked up the Warrior Diet back in like 2003 or 4. And so it's so funny to me. I started fasting back then, just intermittently, and I felt good, and I was like, oh, okay, this works, cool, great. And then everybody like 10 years later is like, oh, have you heard of this new thing? It's called intermittent fast, where you stop eating for a day. I was like, haven't you read the Bible?
Yeah. I like to say that even with anything, it takes about 10 years to become an overnight success, and that's kind of like what intermittent fasting is doing right now.
Well, let's just backtrack a little bit. And so for the people who might not know who you are, Brad, why don't you give us kind of that 50,000-mile view, who you are, how you came to be this intermittent fasting expert?
Yeah. All right. So I'm Brad Pilon, and I write about intermittent fasting. It's kind of what I do for a living now. I got into intermittent fasting through really what is luck and happenstance. I was in nutrition my whole life, starting from a very young age. Went to university to do an undergrad degree in dietetics, what you do to become a dietitian here in Canada. About halfway through, realized that becoming a dietitian was not for me, wasn't what I was interested in, and I was more interested in the research base of things. So when I graduated, I went into the supplement industry to work in research and development. I spent about 6 years there doing R&D and running studies, et cetera, and then got the bug to go back to school. So went back to do my graduate work in nutrition and had the original plan of kind of designing the perfect diet, like kind of Bill Phillips style, the Pilon diet. It would be the typical eat every 3 hours, eat tons of protein, that kind of thing. And again, through happenstance and I think some conversation over some beers, I got onto the concept of studying fasting, so studying what would happen with no nutrition, no intervention whatsoever. You're not giving them a supplement. You're not giving them anything. Just what happens to a person when they don't eat. And I thought this would be simple because I came out of the supplement industry after 6 years experience in R&D. I'm in my mid to late 20s right when that was happening, right? So I already knew everything about the world.
Right.
So I had it pretty set in my mind that, I was going to breeze through my graduate program in like 3 months. That's how brilliant I was, right? And then when I started studying fasting, I sort of got a little bit of mud thrown in my face, and I really didn't, things I thought I would find in these studies, I didn't find, right? I didn't find people losing muscle. I didn't find people's metabolism slowing down. And in fact, what I found was evidence that it's actually a useful method of weight loss if done properly. So I decided to kind of eat some crow, take a deep breath, and I refocused my studies into the metabolic effects of short periods of fasting in humans. And when I was done, I decided this was something that I was going to write about. And I approached my advisor at the time, and I showed him my work. I'm like, is this mine? Can I publish it anywhere I want, or does it have to go in a journal? Turned out, the ideas are mine. So I did the crazy thing of talking to a friend of mine, Craig Valentine, suggested that it might be more worthwhile to publish it as a ebook rather than try to go down the route of doing a hardcover book. Esau Beat was born. That was late 2006, early 2007. And 6-7 years now, it's finally getting popular.
Well, that's great. I like how you know Craig. Craig is a friend of mine, too. He's a good guy, man. He's a good guy to know in this industry. So that's fantastic. That's a great backstory. The thing I like about it so much, too, is one of the things that happens when things take hold is that all the pseudo-bro science experts pop out of the woodwork, right? And they're like, yeah, this is the way to do it, and, so-and-so says you got to do this, and so-and-so says you got to do that. But a lot of people don't have that kind of scientific research background that you have, the ability to interpret the scientific research that you have, and then also the years and years and years of experience doing the actual research. So since you're one of the forefronters of this whole movement, what is kind of the main problems you see happening with people talking about intermittent fasting now?
Oh, well, I mean, a lot of the naysayers against intermittent fasting, I think, are largely absolutely correct within context. And it's the context they don't get, which is simply in any situation, if you're doing too much, then intermittent fasting is not good for you. Unfortunately, in that same situation, neither is dieting normally or exercise or any other added stress. So what I see is people who took the initial concept of intermittent fasting, right, which is replacing dieting with brief periods of not eating. I mean, that's the entire focus of Eat, Stop, Eat.
Sure.
And instead of reading the book, they go, oh, fasting, that sounds awesome. I'm going to add it on top of the fact I'm already super low calorie, super low carb. I only eat protein. I eat a veggie a day. I run for 5 miles a day. Then I do my powerlifting. I take a break. I do my elliptic limping. I feel kind of burnt out, but I'm going to throw the fasting into all of that. And even though I don't feel good, I'm going to keep doing it. And then when everything falls apart, I'll blame the fasting. And that's kind of what I see going on right now is people like to take things to an extreme, right? And fasting is no different. And instead of being told there is a nice, healthy, balanced way to put this in your life, we've come to think that anything that's good for you should be done every single day as much as possible, right? And it's people online, people who study fitness already kind of get that maybe like for weight training that might not be true, right? That maybe days off are a good idea, right? But the average person, when you get an average person who doesn't really understand even weight training, and they're talking about their friend who's in shape at a party, the words that will come out of their mouth is, the typical, there isn't an ounce of fat on the guy, which of course is not possible. And then they follow that up right away with, and he's never never missed a workout in his life, as if, you have to work out 7 days a week for 2 hours a day to get in great shape. So that's sort of the mentality people have. So when you gave them the idea of fasting, and especially if you just kind of gave them a quick, elevator speech of, you should occasionally take a day off of fasting, what they hear is never eat again, right? So that's kind of the direction it's gone into. But you can, and that's the dark side of becoming a fad, right? Is people don't necessarily understand it. It reminds me a lot of paleo in that way. The minute you say the word paleo, without Googling it, without anything, the average person can put it in their head and decide what that means to them, and then decide whether or not they think it's good or bad. And fasting is a lot like that, right? They just sort of generally make up their own rules, try it, and then when it doesn't work, they write off the whole thing. And what I like to say is that writing off the entire concept of intermittent fasting because the version you tried didn't work would be writing off eating because you didn't like being vegan. Right? Like if there's so many different styles, just because one style didn't work doesn't mean all of them won't work for you.
Well, sure, and that kind of brings me to my next point, which is really kind of, a lot of people are talking about protocols within intermittent fasting.
Yes.
And you've got people saying, 16 hours off, 8 hours on, and only eat one meal a day, and this works best, and this works best. And what we do know is obviously we're all individuals, and individuals have different lifestyles, different exercise habits, different sleep habits, different genetics, which is going to make different results happen for different people. What I like is your relaxed approach. So maybe you can kind of give us like a little, like what can our listeners do right now to get started with intermittent fasting, but not go down the negative rabbit hole of feeling like they have to be married to somebody else's paradigm?
Right. Okay. Well, very simply. So, my general concept, the concept of Eat, Stop, Eat, is trying to find the optimal blend of fasting with eating. So, exactly like for a workout, what you're trying to do is find the optimal balance of the workout you do and the amount of recovery time it takes before you can do it again. Fasting is a stress just like a workout, right? You need recovery time, and that recovery time is vital. In a workout, if you don't have that recovery time, you do not grow, you do not adapt. Without recovery, not a single ounce of muscle is built. So I kind of think the same way through fasting. To reap all the benefits, you have to think of intermittent fasting as not only the fast, but the period of time of eating, right? So then now it comes down to who you are. So a well-trained person, an elite athlete, I'm Canadian, so I'm going to use a hockey player, right? They can work out multiple times, have multiple games throughout a week, and because they're a highly conditioned athlete, they can handle that. If I were to try that same workload, I would break, literally probably break in half. That's so. But they're young, they're able to handle that workload, and they are elite athletes. So just like that with fasting, right? For me, 24 hours divided between 2 days. So if you and I were to start fasting now, we'd fast until the exact same time tomorrow. We effectively sleep through the hardest part of the fast. We still eat every day. But that's not enough for me. I still like to have between 2 and 6 days of recovery after my fast. And I decide how much I want to recover by a couple of things. One, how busy is my training schedule, right? I tend not to be a high-volume, heavy workout type of guy, but when I'm trying out extreme workouts, because I'm one of those people who likes to self-experiment, I might cut the fasting down to once a week, right? If everything is going smoothly and I feel awesome, I'm twice a week is where I like to be. If I have some crazy life stress, my wife is a teacher, so every once in a while they do go through a period where they're writing report cards and they turn into crazy versions of a normal human being. During that time, I'm only fasting once a week because the stress level in my house is high, and I'm balancing things. I've got 2 kids, same thing. When one of them is crazy sick, and I've already had a lot of stress in my life, it might be once a week, right? But then when everything else is going okay, I'm good with twice. I don't really gravitate towards the more everyday fasting, only because it doesn't fit my lifestyle. If I wanted to try it, I'd simply do it when my recovery was going well. And if my recovery felt like it wasn't going well, I'd slow up. That's what they recommend for everybody. Like it's really just paying attention. I know it's so cliche to say, but paying attention to your body, right? It's an amazingly effective way to control your calorie intake and to lose weight because you don't really have to think about it. It's very easy. There's no thought process. You just decide that I'm not eating and I'll start again shortly. And there's a huge benefit to that, especially with then you consider that the time you recover when you are normally eating is an important part of the process. And once you feel like, hey, I could fast again, feel fine, I'm going to give it a go, then that's a good idea to start fasting again. But if you think in your head, I'm exhausted, I'm not looking forward to this fast at all, I've been doing this way too much, and this diet is killing me, and my workouts are killing me, I'm so sore, then common sense there would say, don't fast today, wait a couple of days, right? So I just want people to take that approach and apply it to their lives, and it'll make fasting work great for them.
That's fantastic. That brings up a great point, and that's a point I like to make over and over again, which is the inputs produce the outputs. And so many people, like you're saying, they hear about fasting, and they're they're working 10 hours a day. They're doing CrossFit, right? They're intermittent fasting. They're going low carb. And then what happens? They eat all the junk in the world. They quit working out. They can't sleep. They're depressed. Their hormones are shot. They don't want to have sex with their spouse, right? So it's just like people are doing way too much at once, and they're not taking those baby steps. And that's why I like your approach. Just do a little 24-hour here and there when your body says to, and listen to your body, because that's ultimately what we want to teach. Now, one of the mistakes that I see people making, Brad, is they go for a fast, and maybe they go a little bit too long, and the first thing they reach for, they make a bad decision. How do you help people avoid that?